Welcome to No Left Field, the show for busting boundaries and expanding possibilities.
And we have fun doing it.
Do we, though?
Hey, listeners. Last episode, Jason told me about his spiritual journey. This time, I tell Jason about the Presbyterianism I grew up with, grew resentful of, grew apart from, and after exploring other avenues for spiritual renewal and ritual, returned to. Hey, Jazz.
Hey, Ro.
Thank God it's still Friday. It's still Friday.
Still Friday, May 29th, 2026. How does
Groundhog's Day.
Oh my God.
Yay, we're still in the studio. I was so inspired by your spiritual journey story. Truly, truly. So, Jason, you were not indoctrinated in Christianity. You did not get baptized at birth and brought up in the church. I think that is great. That is so good for you. I'll just say, as someone who has been, who was, as much as I have so much compassion for my family, that was how my parents were raised. That's what you did. I really struggled with being thou shalt from the beginning. And being a joiner of this Christian religion. So Presbyterians are very... we're good at potlucks and church rummage sales and choirs, but they're very staid. They're very staid. There's a lot of conservative people in the church, just like behaviorally. So ask me when I feel closest to God.
When do you feel closest to God?
When I'm wiggling, when I'm moving. When I'm touching things, when I'm expressing myself and move, especially in a bodily way. So I think I talked about this last week. I'm a literal mover and shaker. I'm a lifelong dancer, meaning like I'm now 56 years old. I still dance and I teach movement classes, and I just really identify as being a dancer and a mover, and I'm a movement practitioner. I take yoga classes and learning Qigong. And for me to sit and clasp my hands and get still, well, it's hard for all children, right? I think that's why you have Sunday school or whatever. But even beyond that, like to feel a kind of shame around my sensuality, my expressivity. Probably some of that was just systemic and cultural and not necessarily the church, but I just really felt out of place. And so much of that got heightened as a teenager when I really started understanding the patriarchy involved in all of this and the status of women in the Bible and the sort of subservience, the so-called fallen women of the Bible, right? The slut shaming, if you will, of Mary Magdalene, this, so-called prostitute who weeps on Jesus's feet and dries them with her hair, the scolding that the woman who anointed Jesus' feet with her perfume got, just this real looking down on women. And then, of course, as I learned more, it was like, no, literally women are meant to sit in the back and be quiet, or, in some religions aren't even allowed to be in the same space as the men. Our Father, our Father, our Father. And I felt super oppressed by that. So I guess as much as I recoiled from Christianity, I left a little opening. And in my adult life, I heard or read somewhere that the Dalai Lama said you should try to stay with the religion you were raised with.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt myself sort of like relieved, like, oh, okay, I guess I have to go back to the Presbyterian church. Like I'd had a little bit of desire there, but I couldn't reconcile the two. You were talking about the bifurcation, I think, with your, yeah, right. And no, really, let's have faith. And I think I have that schism too, very much so. So I was so inspired by your journey and really humanizing Jesus, God in human form, and especially your resonance with Lent and how the humanity of Jesus' grief and his fear and confusion, the suffering that came through feels so relatable. And I so appreciated that because I've been so dismissive of Jesus. I've lumped Jesus in with all the men. And
understandably.
No, it is. Totally. It is. Although Jesus doesn't like shake his finger, I feel like in the same ways that I'm like, that I, feel like this paternalistic God has like a lot of, disappointment. Another thing that had always really hurt me was the idea of original sin, the idea of living your life to redeem yourself because you're born with original sin, not by any of our faults, but, going back to Adam and Eve. So you were we've been screwed. And as a parent, when I got these babies, I was like, these are I'm this, anything happens to them, it's my fault. They're perfect. I now bear the responsibility of treasuring them, protecting them, filling them with love, but they are love in flesh, in little baby flesh.
You're not a genou.
In fact, I think we talked about this on our Noel listening fun, like when the verse "God and sinners reconciled" came up, we taught the kid God and sisters.
Right. Yeah, you
God and sisters. Like I didn't even want them to know. I didn't want them to ask. Like, what is that? Like it felt so unkind and unjust, and I was a little. I was a pretty, given my sort of interest in moving, and I grew up with a lot of energy, wild energy. It was hard I acted out a little bit. And again, just was curious about how my body could feel in these different situations. And it was looked down on. And then at some point I realized, through the church's eyes, I would be full of sin. And that's when I sort of made a real choice to choose me to out of a sort of sense of self-protection, but also standing up for myself. I just stopped subscribing to the Christian faith. I stopped subscribing to this idea that even if you were a good person, and I tried to be a good person, if I didn't take Jesus as my one true Lord and Savior, I wasn't going to heaven. My family was like, are we going to see you there or not? We'll be there. Are you going to be there? And I was like, are you kidding me? You really believe that even if I live this life full of love, trying to care about other people and love people, be a good mom, be a generous, giving human, if I don't vow that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, I'm not going to heaven.
Did you actually ask them that question?
Yes.
Okay.
And the answer was, yeah. That's kind of what it's about. And in fact, they lumped me in with some other family members who they'd always looked down on or like regarded as like the C&E people, the Christmas and Easter kinds of people.
People who only go to church on Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, C&E. So, the hierarchy, the judgment, the feeling of exclusion totally turned me off and turned me away. And that was a little heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me.
Okay, actually, I'll ask the when question later. I want to stay with the heartbreak. What was heartbreaking to you about? Like, can you dive into that a little bit?
To me, to be rejected by my family on the basis of a feeling that I had that I belonged. I felt like I belonged, but I also felt like I don't believe in original sin. And those two things could not be reconciled. I had to accept that along with Jesus as my Lord and Savior there's original sin, unfortunately, the women in the Bible, and, women were dirty or less worthy than men. They couldn't be disciples. They couldn't be all the ways that the church patriarchy has played out. Those were just the facts. And I needed to get on board with understanding, like, and if I didn't, and I stopped looking, This is something I so appreciate about your journey, is like, you didn't even get curious until later in life. Right. And then you got 30s. Really curious. Yeah. And I sort of by then had already stepped into spirituality. So spirituality was a dirty word in my household. Like,
oh, really?
Religion and religious, but spirituality is like soft. Spirituality is woo. Spirituality is like not Christian practitioner. It's what people who don't want to commit to Christianity do. And that is looked as lesser than. So I tried, I think I knew that and probably found ways to occupy my interest. In other words, I didn't seek out spiritual anything because I didn't want another kind of rejection from my family. But, adulting, having more space and literally distancing myself from my family gave me new horizons. And with those new horizons came exposure to new kinds of spiritual practices. And I started exploring stuff like pagan kinds of rituals where you're really inviting energy from the universe to direct your energy towards, like a communing of energies, thinking about goddesses, thinking about Mother Earth, thinking about astrology, and reading tarot cards. I'm not saying that I encourage everybody to, people can choose. Everyone has their beliefs about these things. But for me, it was so liberating and so interesting because it flexed a similar muscle this muscle that had really gotten very rigid and shut down. Like, maybe we'll just call it my heart, the religious layer of my heart that had sort of hardened, at some point, felt lubricated enough by this spiritual quest that I was able to feel myself as a spiritual person again. And yeah,
if you're on a roll, keep going.
Go ahead.
Listening to you, there's certain pieces I would love to hear more about if you're willing. One, so I'm going to go back to the when question now, because there's a sort of a developmental arc here.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of 2-part question.
Okay.
When did these various shifts happen? And like, how old were you? Were you living at home? Were you at college? Like that sort of in your life, the arc of your life. And then also any moments that you might recall, people that you met along the way. So you mentioned getting involved in pagan rituals. Were there individual humans that you met or groups of people you became involved with? Like, give us a little more sense of kind of the texture, how it actually played out. Is that a fair question to ask you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so I moved to California between my sophomore and junior year of college. I started going to college at the University of Michigan, and then I transferred to Cal State Long Beach.
Whoop, whoop.
And when I was like 4 days after I graduated from college, I got married. And the reason I got married, in addition to thinking I was in love, was because
This was not Ed. Let's just say.
This was not Ed.
This was not Ed.
No. Was because I wanted to live with my boyfriend, and I couldn't do that.
Oh.
I couldn't live with my boyfriend. That was living in sin. I had to be engaged.
So you had internalized that aspect of sin.
I mean, it was still very, very, it was very intense.
Was it, did you actually feel like you would be committing a sin, like internally? How much of that was you internally versus fear of judgment, especially by your parents?
For sure, it was all fear of judgment.
Okay.
Like, I did everything I wanted to do.
Okay.
I didn't have, I had a little, I guess in high school, I had some internal fears and some, when I was exploring some rebellious behavior.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to go to hell for this, or like really questioned that. But by the time I was 20, I didn't internalize that, but I was very aware of the disapproval of my family, my conservative Christian family. So I was like, the only way we're going to be able to live together is if we get engaged. And so we got engaged, and we were engaged for so long. Like,
it's okay to live together when you're engaged, not married?
It was okay to get, as long as there was like a marriage on the horizon.
Okay.
Yes. In that case, it was okay. I mean, probably, you raise a good point. I think, that was my sort of compromise.
Yeah.
So I got married at 23 and actually like to a super lovely guy, but obviously I was a baby and got married for the wrong reasons. And then I became the first person in my family to get divorced, which was like compounding sin.
Oh my gosh. Like, and how long was that? Like,
that was 5 years later. We were married for 5 years.
All right.
So I got divorced. But I moved to San Francisco with my first husband, and right away started meeting all the groovy people that participate in the pagan rituals. Yeah, co-workers, people in the dance community. I mean, it sounds very much of a piece with San Francisco, but no, I mean, it was like there was the ocean. There was nature in such a magnificent way here in San Francisco, a little bit in California in general and in Long Beach, but I didn't sort of experience the dramatic majesty of nature like I did in San Francisco, which lends itself. I remember like a Halley's Comet ritual. I remember a ritual out at Fort Funston, which is in San Francisco. It's a beach that looks like Ireland. Like there are green bluffs and this kind of beautiful sea,
cliffs too.
Cliffs. Did I say bluffs? Yeah, cliffs.
Oh, I mean, so I wasn't correcting you.
Okay. That's what I meant. Cliffs.
No, I was not correcting you. I was just
green. Ice plant. We saw whales. We saw dolphins. We saw whales breaching. it might have been like a breaching whale Halley's Comet ritual, but you were saying, like, I feel like we called that. We dug a labyrinth into the sand.
Wow.
We
you conjured that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Like you made that breach happen?
That's what it felt like.
Wow.
These were these powerful women. It was my coven. It was like my work coven.
Well, would you characterize that as a spiritual experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. And really beautiful community, like really beautiful, intentional women who were like putting our energy together to channel beauty, to channel transcendence, to channel transformation, rooting for each other. So much of it was happened in community too. I learned about Anna Halperin, who had this very beautiful series of rituals on Mount Tamalpais, like this one dance. It's just like humans of all kinds. You didn't have to be a dancer, coming together and circling up and generating energy, healing energy. These were healing rituals. So it was a visceral experience. It was an embodied experience. There was digging involved. There was singing and chanting and dancing involved. This was the kind of homecoming that I had really been looking for. Fast forward, though, I think it was, I married Ed. We had this kind of beautiful, more pagan than Christian. Yeah, we had a Universalist, a friend who got certified to marry us under the Universal Life Church. So not a minister, not in a church. We had ritual involved in that, in our wedding. And my parents came and my grandma came, like some members of my family who I learned to realize, like, yes, a lot of it was healing that I had to do. Like I was holding on to this baggage that they were still, thou shalt at me. And they were so happy that I was getting married again. They were so happy that I was going to have a partner, that I was still young and, that I was young enough to possibly have a family, and really supportive of that and continue to be to this day. And I, in fact, did have a family, had these 2 babies, and to sort of, is it okay if I tie back to like, when do I feel closest to God?
No, it's not okay. You may not go back there.
I want to feel close to God. Touch.
Yeah.
Touch. Touching the little baby. I can sort of still feel the pull of the umbilical cord.
Wow.
From me to baby Julius, and just like holding this wriggling, right? My trembling hands, the baby Julius taking his first breaths and wiggling, like touching that. Like that is holy. There is holiness in holding your baby. One's baby. I probably feel the same way holding any of our kids' babies. If I'm so lucky to get to be auntie or grandma, just like this baby flesh, the baby flesh. And that I felt very close to God. The gift of this newborn, the gift of this, my body knowing how to birth, the gift of this little baby knowing how to take a breath. And the gift of breath itself, which to me feels like God in every rising and falling of my lungs. Like we have this, if part of my physical practice involves like intentional breathing. So yoga, qigong, even, the fitness that I do, like slow, deep breaths. And with those slow, deep breaths, we can create more space. My friend Stephanie that I referred to earlier, yet on the other podcast that we did tonight on Friday.
Season 2, episode 2.
taught me that like the fascia around the diaphragm is also connected to the pocket of the heart. So by taking a deep breath and the billowing of the diaphragm down, it literally stretches your heart, which is so beautiful, right? You can stretch your heart just by taking a deep breath, and then the heart sort of settles in its cavity. So I think feeling my body by taking slow, deep breaths is a place that I feel God. But back to touching, I had this kind of great experience. I've loved traveling. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to when you're traveling and you're in someplace new, your senses are so lit up. And that is an experience that I have often of seeing things like a little bit heightened, and that can feel holy. I was literally in a Christian church in Armenia, and it was a little problematic for me. Women had to cover their heads, and I definitely felt myself a little bit like, why do only the women have to cover their heads? But okay, this is like, I wanted to respect this cultural difference, right? I'm a guest in this house. I covered my head. I lit a candle. And then I saw women touching the art. So a painting, women touching the art. So this is something that I've been known to do in inappropriate places like museums,
Yes.
Touch.
You're well known in our small circle as the person who touches the objet d'art.
Yes.
Don't touch the objet d'art, Rowena.
Yes. But guess what, Jason?
What?
You could touch the objet d'art, and guess what it was?
What was it?
It was a painting of Jesus on the cross, and his feet were touched so much that they were like worn. Like the painting was worn and becoming transparent in this place where everybody touches Jesus's feet. And I, of course, thought, oh, they're receiving they're receiving Christ's blessing by touching the feet. But more recently, I've thought maybe they're giving their blessing. It's probably best to think both, but like the idea of laying our hands on Christ's feet in gratitude, in reverence, in look what you had to go through. Let me heal you. Let me alleviate your suffering with my hands on these feet that have been nailed to this cross. May I bring some peace to you, you who died for us. Another amazing rubbing or touching of the art experience I had was at this, I think it's called Frogner Park in Oslo, Norway. And maybe you've seen things like this before, but they rub, there was a statue in bronze of a young boy, and the penis was very shiny from all of the rubbings of this boy's penis. And allegedly this was like a fertility juju. Rubbing this penis statue was bringing fertility. And so, but like people, so much so it was like gleaming, like it was like a pilgrimage to receive the fertility juju from this sculpture. So I didn't, because I had all the kids that I wanted to have, but also
right. Not looking for a third baby right then.
But I did appreciate the cultural practice of that. That's my kind of church. Like, let's touch and rub, and that's
my kind of church. Let's touch and rub.
There's that beautiful film out now, The Testament of Ann Lee, who started the Shakers practice. I don't know if you know about this, but like it's like a sect of a religious.
I've heard of the Shakers. They actually shake.
They shake.
I didn't know the Shakers
shake. With the Spirit of God, for the Spirit of God, to get like shaking, animals shake to sort of settle their nervous system when they're encountering something scary. And I have my students shake a lot to sort of like, again, like regulate, self-regulation, shaking. And so, but you can also like amp your energy up by shaking. So
right.
I'm not a shaker, but I would shake. And then
You're a shaker with a small S.
Yes,
right?
I'm a shaker. The small S. I was invited I met someone who attends a Presbyterian church in San Francisco, and they were like, and Bob's Donuts is right around the corner. And I was like, literally,
Bob's Donuts.
It whet my appetite for church. Donuts in church. That was like part of the bribery when we were growing up. I was a little bit bribery. I mean, it was like the weekend, and you had to like wake up early and put on nice clothes and shower and brush your hair, and like then afterwards you got donuts. And my dad got the newspaper, and he would read us the comics, and that was always really special.
That's so sweet.
That was super sweet. So Bob's Donuts was the lure. I ended up walking into this Presbyterian church where there's a woman, a clergy woman, Pastor Maggie Henderson. She has the spirit.
Oh, does she ever?
Doesn't she?
Oh, does she ever?
She's so relatable.
Oh.
The salt of the earth, Pastor Maggie. Humble, funny, makes beautiful eye contact, makes beautiful connections between things that are happening in the Bible and how it relates to what's happening right now in the real world, in the so-called real world. And it's a social justice church. It's very gay friendly. It's many things that our church did not advertise growing up. I was young. I don't know what resources they had, but I remember feeling really at home at Old First with this kind of the spectrum of invitations to all kinds of people to attend. And
interestingly, also Presbyterian.
And it was Presbyterian. Yeah. Again, the Dalai Lama, like, best to attend the church you or try to stay with the religion that you were raised with. And that somehow felt so good to me. So we went enough times that they asked us to be members. And I'm still really conflicted. We have not joined the church. And the Presbyterian church needs you to join it because it's democratically run and you vote on things, including like the pastor's salary and the deacons and stuff. And we're not voting members. We cannot help. We cannot serve the church in this capacity. And the reason is because the vows ask you to take Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And I honestly said, like, we're also pagan. And I guess I haven't done enough soul searching. I haven't turned within enough to reconcile that because I am expecting, just like you said, is it okay if I don't believe in the literal resurrection? That if I said, is it okay if I'm also subscribed to these pagan kinds of rituals and accept other people having their gods, that's good with me too, that they would probably be more than welcoming, that I would really learn something about this church. I would deepen my relationship to this church. I haven't done that yet.
I can almost picture Maggie almost like laughing at your question.
Exactly. Like, get with the program. Something like that. Like, are you kidding me? Have you been waiting? Yes. And in fact, yes. My favorite part of attending Old First is the community. And we do this thing called Pass the Peace. And the community has gotten smaller and smaller. And I'm sorry to report, like, post-pandemic, now we have the hybrid church as many churches do. And post-pandemic, the congregation has gotten even smaller because some people can watch on Zoom. And that's great for access needs and long distance and when people aren't well. And if you can't make it on Sunday, you can go back and watch the recording. So I'm not disparaging that that's an option, but the congregation is small enough that when we pass the peace, you hug or shake every single person's hands. And again, it kind of comes back to the physical touch, to making contact with one another, to accepting and sharing peace in palm to palm or arms around your shoulder. And this has been an incredibly powerful year for us to receive prayers through Ed's treatment and Ed's wellness, hallelujah. Ed is well. I cannot underestimate the power of the prayers that have been coming our way and having an impact. I believe that all that praying, we prayed ourselves and we received so many prayers, and that was a powerful practice to engage in and to believe we're moving Ed towards wellness. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the church. I'm grateful for my complicated, nonlinear spiritual upbringing and my additional, broader spiritual community. And I'm really looking forward to getting more into talking about prayer next week, and something that you said about it was around the time that you were talking about, I love the idea of transformation, but I cannot believe that a human body comes back from the dead. But when you were talking about how you loved the idea of transformation, I'm going to find it. Oh, yeah. When you were talking about how you love the idea of transformation, you said, this example, I want to believe that horrible things can happen and we emerge stronger. And that's what happens in this prayer ritual. That's what happened that led to this prayer ritual that we'll talk about next time. A horrible thing happened and folks emerged from it stronger, and it has led to this movement that we're now a part of.
That's quite a teaser, Rowena.
Was that a good place to stop?
Not quite yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm not done.
I'm done.
You yet. Not done with you yet.
Okay.
I just want to take a moment because I want to thank you for sharing all of that.
You're welcome.
It's a beautiful story. I'm really struck by how open you have remained. It would have been really easy to just shut down, right? To just nope. That this is what religion is. It is exclusionary, and I mean all of the things that you shared that didn't resonate with and that were repelled by in your childhood experience with religion. So I'm really just left with and struck by the persistence that you've brought to this, the seeking nature of you, Rowena Ritchie. That there's something that's been driving you forward in your spiritual journey.
Yes.
Something powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. It's reminding me, I felt guilty that my parents thought I was like the black sheep, and it's not unlike what I felt God felt about me. God, this sort of the parent, the sort of disapproving parent was the association that I had. And that's so uncool. That's so unfair to a child, and I don't blame my parents. Again, I feel like they were raising me with the values.
Part of a system.
I was part of a system.
Right.
Yeah. But I definitely, but some of that guilt got me to keep being curious. There was some way that the guilt, like you said, I could have just shut it down, but the guilt, the niggling guilt that was but I feel, but there's something there. I don't know. And then of course, just the when I'm with my family and they go to church, what am I going to do? Not go? I could not go, but I just kept finding myself going through the motions, wanting to sit with my, family sitting in the pew. And that sort of worked on me too, to the point where I could sort of reinterpret, make metaphors out of especially some of the hymns that feel, not like they're celebrating, but more like they're, I don't know. Anyways, I don't know what to take from that, but there was something productive about that guilt, maybe.
Well, try this on, see how this lands with you. If it was just guilt and the experience of guilt, doesn't feel like it would have been likely to lead to curiosity and exploration.
Yeah.
What I feel like you have been gifted with is a kind of self-awareness and a kind of curiosity, an ability to get outside of yourself. So looking at yourself as somebody experiencing guilt and then curiosity driving you to try to understand it more.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yes. But then I just flashed on, like, I felt guilty for living with my boyfriend. So it drove me to get married. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
but that was unexamined guilt probably, right? No?
Unexamined guilt. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Again, yes. Appease it. Yes. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I guess what I feel like is like, first of all, guilt, shame, and fear. Woohoo!
Yeah.
What a world we can build around guilt, shame, and fear.
The Holy Trinity.
There you go. Yes, the Holy Trinity of guilt, shame, and fear.
Yeah, right.
So what I guess what I'm saying is I don't from how you've narrated it and from what I know about you, I don't think it was the guilt itself. And your feeling and experience of guilt that was driving you forward. I think it was curiosity that you had about that guilt. So your self-awareness combined with curiosity, combined with persistence. That's what I'm positing that.
Yeah. No, I think growing, right? Having growing experiences, feeling more confident in trusting that I was a good person, feeling more confident in... I think a real turning point for me was understanding my calling with care, really. When my I'm Rowena. I'm named after my grandmother, Rowena, who was the first person I confided in that I went back to church, and she called my mom and she was like, Paris, that's my mom's name. Paris, you're going to need to sit down for what I'm about to tell you. My mom's like, oh no. And she's like, Rowena is going to church. My mom was like, what? That's incredible. Like,
so it's sitting down for good news.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
That was so funny. Like, as if my mom would faint, though. I guess that's how, what much of a lost cause she thought it was. But no, her husband, my grandfather, had a stroke, and I was pretty young. You know, I had met Ed, so I must have been I must have been 30, but that was when I really started to trust. I guess, yes, meeting Ed, feeling like I had this another chance at being in a relationship that I knew would be really challenging and make me a better person. Like, really, I really wanted to, like, have that. And it was at that same time that I took a lot of care of my grandfather who'd had a stroke, and really felt like I had healing powers. Like, yes, he didn't get better from that, but I had healing powers to comfort him in those moments. I had healing powers to reassure my grandmother that I was there for her and him. There was a lot of touch involved there, hand holding, foot rubbing, feeling like the presence of God moving through me to be able to sit with this very unwell person. And that was transformational.
Your healing powers are remarkable.
Oh, wow. Thank you. It's a process, right? Healing is a process. And I do love the challenge of proceeding, like having that's movement, right? Moving through something. Today, I was leading a class, leading an exercise fitness class, and I was having us do wood choppers. So it's like dumbbells, and you make a little axe out of them. Oh. So you've stacked dumbbells, and you're moving them from your shoulder to your hip, like an axe, like you're chopping. This is related, I hope, to moving through and the process and the healing process. And there was this, I had a moment of euphoria when I looked around the room and I saw a lot of different people with a lot of different levels of ability. Mm-hmm. These are older people. Mm-hmm. And in this particular class, it's a class where we allow people to use chairs because some of their mobility is very compromised and their strength is very compromised. So I'm looking around the room and I saw that everybody was tapping their potential. Like everyone was lifting the axe and bringing it back down, and we were collectively doing it. And it was this Maxwell song. It was not really a woodchoppery song, but it was like in the cue. This Maxwell song, Pretty Wings, which is a really beautiful song. And this photo of our son, baby Julius, who's now 23 years old and working in Kamloops, British Columbia as an intern in the Department of Forestry. He sent us a photo of him recently with an axe. And it's like an action photo of him chopping, and he's got so much effort in his face, like he's clenching his face, and I saw the effort, and it flashed into my mind, and I was so moved by the Spirit. It was like the convergence of me looking around and seeing all of this effort, me thinking about Julius and the effort in his actions, and that he had grown into this man who could hold an axe, but still tender, working in this beautiful landscape that he is so happy to be in. And I'm so happy for him. It just suspended me in this moment of euphoria. And I just felt like anything was possible in that moment. And if I could have just stayed there, it's like, but no. And that was okay, because this is process. If I could have just stayed there, I could surf anything. I could handle all the rejection. I could handle the guilt. I could handle anything. I could just stay there. It was such a moment of pure goodness, like looking around goodness, feeling goodness, memory goodness, the connection to that little baby whose umbilical cord was attached to me, like just this like support, mutual support, and lifting up of each other and lifting up of our axes. And then it passed. And in the very next chop, probably, it kind of was like we're back. And it wasn't like let down per se, like I'm disappointed, but it was like over and on to the next. And I wish that for everyone. I wish that for everyone to have enough energy, enough support around them, enough stories and snapshots to fill them so that they can call them up, or so that they can be surprised by them. It wasn't like I asked for that moment. It just surprised me because I had received it. So may we be in available to each other to receive the energy that each of us is walking around with. I guess I'll just end by saying this is something you lifted up when I asked you in the 2 episodes ago, when I asked you if we start with the premise that you are whole and complete, then what is your prayer? And you said that I can bring this divine spark out into the world and share it with others. And may that be so.
Amen.
Amen. And our women.
That's all for this episode of No Left Field. If you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star rating and follow the podcast. That will help others find us. Until next time, may our left fields be ever expanding.